Hi, Misha here, and over the last bit, kind of been covering Egyptian firearms again, trying to give what info I've been able to glean about them, be it the Hakim up here, or the Egyptian FN49, or today's rifle, the quite uncommon and quite cool Egyptian Rasheed, or Rashid. There's not a lot out there, especially on this gun. But they are surprisingly well made, and this is Egypt trying to establish itself as a major firearms manufacturer and supplier for the third world. And I'm not using third world in a derogatory term. In the 1950s and 60s, many nations were proud to be part of the third world, meaning they were not beholden to the first world. Europe and, Britain and mainly USA domination, or the second world, Russian communist domination. Third world was something outside. And many nations were vying to kind of get to the top of that heap. India kind of comes to mind, but also Egypt. So for the whole Hakim story, I've done several videos, including one not too long ago. Today, we're going to talk about its little brother, or little cousin. Mechanically, the Rashid is very much a scaled down Hakim. Very similar shape to the stock, very much the same trigger group. Even the magazine and mag catch are simply scaled down. Still a 10-round magazine. The forearm is cut back a bit, and whereas this one uses a Swedish style detachable bayonet, this uses an SKS style blade bayonet. It even still retains the adjustable gas regulator, gas valve, as well as the direct impingement gas system and tilting or tipping locking bolt. The sights are graduated from 100 to 1,000 meters. And the safety is the same. But there is one big and very important difference, and frankly, improvement. The charging or cocking system. Oh yes. The Hakim uses the rather, certainly eye-catching, amongst other things, system borrowed from the Ljungman, or Ljungman. The Rashid still has the same moving parts basically, but now we have a more traditional handle on the right side. And it's even non-reciprocating. So it kind of reminds me of the one on the FAL. And it still has the last round bolt hold open. If I can do it here. Click. And this is still meant to be topped off by clips. Still wouldn't want to get my fingers ate by it, but do the handle. And this no longer locks together in the style. So I'm going to do it this way. I can't imagine why they made that change, can you? No, the Hakim, of course, is chambered for 8mm Mauser, because Egypt had a lot of 8mm guns after World War II, and the Rashid is chambered for 7.62 by 39. But why did Egypt have that cartridge? Well, this gun was introduced around 1960, give or take. And despite what some say, Egypt was not manufacturing AKs at that time. In fact, it would be roughly another decade before the Mahdi factory, Factory 54, was fully ready to start building their licensed copy of the AKM. So why the cartridge in Egypt? And why go with this design versus other things? The political situation in the Middle East was complicated. And at first, the Russians were more interested in backing the Israelis. And the British were backing Egypt. But soon things would change. And by the mid-50s, Russia was supplying, well, everything, from helmets to bullets to guns to Egypt, as they were fighting their wars against Israel, including, of course, the Suez Crisis in 1956, and the 6 Days War in 1967, and so on and so forth. So, this is how they first get introduced to 7.62 by 39. They would be given or sold a good number of SKSs, chambered for it, because these were becoming surplus to needs in Russia and even elsewhere in Eastern Europe. Here's a late Russian. Notice the bayonet is essentially identical. It's a 12-inch blade. Like the SKS, the Rashid has a 20.5-inch barrel. But unlike the SKS, it's actually threaded. Of course, the cocking handle, while not the same, is very much inspired by the SKS too. So its influences, well, they're very apparent. But Egypt wasn't going to build SKSs. They already had the production line for the Hakim. But another interesting connection, Czechoslovakian VZ52s. Around 1954, Russia brokered a deal for Czechoslovakia to deliver quite a substantial quantity of VZ52 rifles to Egypt. Now they had sent several 7.62 by 45, the original VZ52. I'm not 100% sure that they sent the VZ52-57, chambered for 7.62 by 39, but it does seem likely. It is definitely possible. Now, not early on. The first ones would have definitely been the 45, but they were still shipping them guns in the late 50s and early 60s. And since the VZ58 was coming into vogue, this would not really be as much use to the Czechs. There's no direct design connection or influence, except for you can point out that the 52, like the Rashid, both have a detachable 10-round mag, but are still expected to be topped off by stripper clips. Even before they started making the Rashid, Egypt did start producing 7.62 by 39 ammunition. So, things were getting primed, and they kept fighting, and hence this gun came to be and was used alongside these. But as we know, very few Rasheeds were actually produced, which is kind of ironic in and of itself. So really all of these self-loading guns, not select fire so far, the ones we've looked at, just self-loading, let Egypt retire or at least put into second-line training use their old bolt actions, Infields, Carcanos, Mausers. Let's bring the Hakim back for a little comparing. The Hakim is definitely a heavy beast, 10.5 pounds. Comparing that to the Rashid, it's about 9 pounds. Pound and a half does matter, but more importantly, the ammunition. 10 rounds of 8mm weighs good bit more than 10 rounds of 7.62 by 39. What does add some weight back, though, is, of course, our folding bayonet. Overall length, Hakim's about 48 inches. And our Rashid here is just a hair under 41. Barrel length, like I said, this is 20.5. This is about 24.5 inches. Although it does have an integrated ported barrel muzzle brake system. Not integrated, you know what I mean. You know what I meant. And that's really what gives it so much extra length, is that. So yeah, the Rashid is a shorter, handier, lighter rifle. But of course, by the time it was introduced in the 1960s, it was, if not completely obsolete, it was getting there very quickly. And so they only built 8,000. Could they have built more? Most certainly. They built 70, maybe even 80,000 Hakims and hundreds of thousands of the Mahdi or Mauser AK rifle. So it wasn't for lack of ability. It was just one of those rifles that I think they wanted to see if they could do it. But then by the time it was there, probably saw some second line military use, but what we mostly know it for in Egypt was it was issued and carried by law enforcement and other internal security agencies. And it seems to have just, banged around for the 60s and 70s. And really is just one of those historical curiosities, quite frankly. Remember I said the muzzle's threaded. I put a Romanian flash hider that was nearby on it. That's because it's actually threaded 14 by 1 left hand, standard AK-47 AKM. But this muzzle cap thread protector seems to be the only thing we ever see on the Rashid. They probably just did it, so it was there. After all, the VZ52 had a threaded barrel, although it was a different pitch. So it's probably just for training, or better to have it and not need it type thing. It does look pretty good with the little flash hider on it, though, doesn't it? And it actually dogs down to the side base. Like I said, we still have the Hakim's adjustable gas. Probably not as necessary on this gun. It was really needed on the Hakim because of all the different types of 8mm Egypt had. But since they were mostly using 7.62 by 39 provided to them by Russia or that they made, it was probably a little more consistent. It would of course have been steel cased, no storage compartment in the butt. This is an original sling, so very AK or SKS style. And that's really about it, guys. It's said that only 2,000 of these are in the USA. The number 8,000 is commonly said. I don't know if that's ever 100% been verified. Factory records do not seem all that available. They're not common, and trying to find replacement parts for either of these guns, but especially the Rashid, is not easy. That said, I have shot this one a couple of times, and it's quite fun. The way it works, the recoil impulse does feel rather different from an SKS or an AK. It's just kind of its own critter, own thing. But just one of those ideas behind the times. But we were covering Egyptian guns again, so had to bring out the Rashid. It disassembles the same way as the Hakim and Ljungman. Just put this in the middle position, pull up. And internally, aside from the change to the cocking device, the bolt and carrier are the same as is the trigger group. Interestingly, some of these, when they came in, because they weren't yet declared CNR, and it was the time of the ban, they had their bayonet machined off, because with the threaded barrel bayonet, and detaching mag. They had too many evil features. How naughty. But let me know what you think. Do you own one of these? Any opinions? It's just neat. I have no idea what they're going for today. Back when I picked this one up, they were about $500. And Hakim's were about, I don't know, $350, $4. So they were more, but not crazy. I've run across maybe half dozen Rasheeds in my life so far. And yeah, just one of those neato guns. As always, I greatly appreciate you hanging out with me. If you could, please do like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like to help support the channel, please check out the link to the Patreon page. This is Misha. Catch you very soon. Next time.